Cut the dang music. What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday. Hope you're great. Okay, so to start off, I have a lot of stuff that I want to talk about before we get to the chat. Those of you in the chat asking questions, we'll get to those here in a bit. Thanks for that. Let's see, 15% off. Codes 20 now, 15 now. Punch those in. Boom. All right, so first thing, discounts for the weekend on product. I'm going to quick show you guys a couple things where you can save some money at livecortex.com to go grab some epic stuff. Let me just make sure I'm on the right thing here and window cap us at Chrome. That should work. Okay, so the most popular consults that we just opened up. So look, we were doing coaching for the longest time, and they would get to the point where they'd book, and I wouldn't be available for anything. I wouldn't really be available for coaching. I'd have to increase the prices so that ultimately no one did it, but a few people still bought at very high prices on coaching. But I launched for people that do not want to do long coaching cycles, 2 different consults. First, the TRT Protocol Audit. This has been the second most popular consult. It's a 25-minute call with me. So you actually get my time. You get a call with me. I'll listen to your entire setup. Mainly, it's a targeted fact-finding process to figure out what is going wrong in your protocol and how we can fix it. We do not generate protocols in the audit. I will listen. I will do my fact-finding process and then suggest changes that you should make to fix libido, erections, energy, otherwise. You can book this in under a minute, livecortex.com. The second consult that was launched, which is the actual most popular one, I mean, I think we literally booked 7 of them this last week, is the TRT Sexual Function Enhancement Consult. So this is, again, for folks that don't want the longer coaching cycles. The coaching cycles are extremely useful for long-standing sexual dysfunction, but if you'd rather go at this alone and you want targeted advice, plus protocols generated for you, it just comes with no ongoing support, right? We'll do the whole fact finding. We do everything we do in coaching, except for there's no ongoing support from me. But you get a command center online document with protocols that I think you should execute targeted to you. Will you need the additional protocols? Probably not. I've got a good way of determining what people should be dosing based on their response patterns and what they're dosing now and what kind of problems that they're having. But there are 3 to 5 additional adjustment routes on the TRT Sexual Function Enhancement Consult online on your TRT protocol tracker that's yours forever that I build for you. All right, so you can go get those, livecortex.com. They are new. They're in the description of this video, and they're our most popular. Again, the thing that the most popular digital product we've launched for people that don't want to play with small TRT anymore, you're just tired of it, is high dose TRT Mastery. It's about an hour long. It shows you all of the protocols that work with high doses, how to control estradiol or not, but specifically how to dial in the libido and erections while enjoying anabolism. A lot of it. I mean, on these higher doses, you're going to look like a beast, feel like a beast. It's like people have a hard time with higher doses because they don't quite know how to dial them in to feel good as well as to function good in terms of sexual function. I've mastered that. I put that in this course. It's down in the description of this video. All right, so let's talk about my protocol update. I'm running 250 tests now. I'm injecting that once every 7 days. This here literally, I won't show you the label, but this here literally is the test 250. I think this is actually important for people because I do not pin test with fucking insulin syringes. I think that is a great way to get the test halfway into your vascular tissue. I think subq can work for some people, but I am not a huge proponent of it at all, especially because it's not just my N=1, it's coaching. And I get to see that not a lot of people respond to subq injections. Test was meant to be injected in the muscle. That this is just true. So this is a 1.5 inch needle. It's a 1.5 inch, very thin needle. It's like an insulin syringe. And you can find those on Amazon, 1.5 inch. They're individually wrapped, Luer lock, and they are, I think they're pretty high gauge, like 27 gauge, something like that. So they feel like an insulin syringe, but you're getting a 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches deep into the muscle. So I pin, this is test 250. I'm getting that UGL from Source List. And I'm pitting an entire milliliter, right? So that's 250 milligrams once every 7 days. So let's talk about how I feel. Number one, on infrequent injections in the past, I've noticed that there's definitely a noticeable trough if the doses were below 200. The trough was like, okay, on trough day, which is really kind of the day before I would re-inject on a 7-day protocol, I felt pretty crappy and pretty tired and pretty run down. On 250, I don't feel any of that. All right, I don't feel any of that. And if you plot it out, I'm troughing around 1100 and peaking between 1650 and 1700 in total test. So I never go below a threshold where I feel like I'm androgen deficient, or where you get some of the side effects that come about when you start dropping, when your levels start dropping quickly. That's part of the trough that people feel. Secondarily, I've recovered my levator scapulae on my right side from an incline press injury where I had tried to push 2 additional reps like 3 different times past failure. Like, I was already at failure, and I just recruited a bunch of neck muscles to pull the fucking bar up, and I injured myself. So I haven't really been able to do bench, and I haven't done anything that really activates the shoulders, the traps, the upper traps, or the levator scapulae. So finally, I am back to that. And now, being on an anabolic dose to test, I am stronger immediately. It's been about a month and like 2 weeks being on 250. I'm starting to finally see it in my physique, which is really nice because it's summertime and, you know, I'm going to the beach and Jill and I are fucking going outside. I'm taking big, long walks. So I'm happy with the anabolism, and I'm also happy with the fact that I don't have to run a cycle. Like, you know, running a cycle requires aromatase for me. It requires estrogen control, or my dick will not work correctly. So it's been useful for me to be able to ride the borderline there without actually running a cycle, not having to take Anavar, which is going to skew my lipids, and largely everything be in check. I feel from day to day pretty much the same. Again, I don't really have a trough. I feel energized from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. I probably need a little less sleep, or on days where I sleep like shit, because like last night there was a fucking thunderstorm that woke me and Jill up, and then my cat came in from outside soaked, and I had to dry him with a towel. So, you know, we were up for a little bit there, and I feel fine. I feel great. The most prominent difference, and this is why I keep harping on this for people that have been running every other day injections or not enough testosterone, they can't figure out how to tolerate higher doses of testosterone, is that the nocturnal erections and then the tactile erections, those are erections to the touch, are super fucking hard. I mean, I haven't really had erections like this on TRT since running, a cream and prop hybrid with a lot of DHT, which was ultimately a very high dose of intermittent hybrid prop on top of 3 pumps of 200 milligram cream per day. Those were like, it's like you couldn't find a fucking venous leak. It'd be impossible. Like, it was just so rigid, like Cialis level rigid, or double dosing Cialis. So kind of that's where I'm at. Nocturnals are waking me up, and sometimes they hurt. They're extremely rigid. I've got a lot of DHT. So far, it hasn't disturbed my hair a whole lot. There's a little bit of gapping on the top, but that's to be expected. I have pretty good hair genes, so I'm not going to lose my hair. So I'm quite happy about how that's going. My libido is off the fucking charts. Like, it's always aggressive, and my libido is good, and there are moments where it kind of bothers me throughout the day when Jill isn't here and I'm like working and shit. I'm like, fuck, man. But, you know, now it is... if you've ever been on higher doses of test and you're managing the estradiol, and in my case, by not really dosing a lot of HCG at all, so that I don't go fuck up my ratios, you notice that the libido is much more aggressive. You know, the primal libido everyone's looking for, essentially. So I've got that, and it's great because Jill is on HRT as well with a little bit of test, so her libido is fucking amazing too. So we're having a great time with that. How long am I going to run it? Probably for the rest of the summer. Hematocrit's at 49.7, so it's right at the top, not over. So that's wonderful. I am trying to keep up with the cardio. I'm doing hour-long walks every day or every other day, and at the gym I'm running on the treadmill and lifting weights. So drinking a ton of water throughout the day. So the hematocrit is good. The BP, mine never goes up even on cycle. My lipids, my LDL is 7 points over range. So not the greatest, but not fucking super bad compared to what I've seen. And the HDL is like 60 last time I checked it. So health and blood is in order. I feel fucking phenomenal. I actually feel like I have a little more cardio, which is, antithetical to what most people think about high doses of test. Again, 600 has been studied with no adverse effects. It doesn't mean you're not going to have adverse effects on 600 milligrams of test, and that doesn't mean that that's healthy, right? Just for me, it's working out very well. Probably stay on it for the rest of the summer. I just want to put on some more mass as I did a few summers ago with this cycle that actually stayed. I want some keepable gains. I need to get back to working chest because the injury really fucked me up. So I really want to kind of build my chest out and start progressively overloading. I'm already doing that. And then I'll probably just go down to 200. I'm really not interested in playing with 140 or 170, those kind of medium or small TRT doses anymore. I'm having a great time injecting less frequently. That's always worked for me. A lot works for me. I'm an anomaly. I can inject every other day and it still works. It's just not as great as doing what I'm doing now. And once I change, it'll be 200 a week, probably once a week. And if not, it'll be 210 a week doing 150 every fifth day. That works for me as well. All right, so that's where I'm at. I feel fucking amazing. And I guess I'll keep you guys posted on how this goes. Okay, so the discount codes are in the description. The 20 now code is for digital products. So all the downloadable courses, guides, those are 20% off. And then 50 now is 50% off 3 and 6 month coaching. That's thousands of dollars off. Let's get to questions. All right, what do you find the biggest cause of low libido or EQ on higher doses of test? It could be a number of things. No, it's usually not the ester. What kind of higher doses are we talking about, first of all? Let's talk about this because there's actually a lot of other things, and maybe we can segue into nicotine because I know a lot of people dose a lot of nicotine, and I can tell you for sure. Now, I've done this in coaching over the last 6 months, but this has happened repeatedly over the last 2 months where I've had to have people drastically dial down the nicotine and then their erections came back because everything else looked fine. And I'm sitting here wondering, like, what else? Does this person have a vascular problem? We just reduced the nicotine load a lot and the erections came back. So there's all kinds of fucking things. You guys have got to look out for that. It's a potent vasoconstrictor. I love nicotine just as much as you guys do. I fucking use patches. I have a 3 milligram per milliliter vape that I like. Nicotine's awesome, but it can fucking inhibit your erection, so be careful. The biggest cause of low libido and erection quality in high doses or test are usually just estrogen being out of range relative to your DHT. So you've just got too high E2 relative to that DHT, and the biggest secondary cause of that is HCG, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, it's just based on the data. If you've got a high quantity of HCG, which I would define as like more than 250 IU a week, you got to be really careful with high doses of test. You really can't run a lot of HCG typically unless you're going to take an aromatase inhibitor. Okay, it's really clear that the guys on the forums that are dosing some HCG with their high doses of test, they're taking Masteron or Primo or an AI, and there they have their erections and their libido. And it's even better because they've got so much androgen action than on regular TRT or lower doses of test. So, I would look at your estrogen ratio compared to your DHT, and there's no one ratio to look at, which makes that challenging. So what you'll have to do is essentially eyeball reducing the E2 a little bit if you're on higher doses right now. I would need to understand your injection frequency as well and what ester you're using. The best way to do high dose TRT, in my opinion, is either testosterone enanthate or testosterone cypionates. You can run prop at 100 every third day. That also works. But enanthate and cypionate every 5th or 7th day for high dose TRT is the best sweet spot. Remember, you trough. Like I drop 400 to 500 nanograms per deciliter on my trough. So estrogen stops converting. I mean, it's still converting a little bit, but it's not this massive peak. It will peak and then it just drops back down. So it's like, regardless of what my serum says or your serum says, if the estrogen gets to drop through a trough, you're getting less exposure at the tissues. Okay. And so you shift into the balance, or hopefully stay in the balance, of DHT to estradiol. And in the first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, the erections for me were not hit or miss. They were largely good, but not perfect. And then that balanced out. So you have to give every protocol time, especially when you're talking about long-acting esters. Now they're fucking insane, absolutely fucking insane. So those are the reasons. Additionally, yeah, injection frequency. If you're putting it too close together, you never get a break in aromatization. This really matters. This matters at your penis tissue, where estrogen receptor beta is bound to constantly by estradiol, which has inhibitory effects on smooth muscle function, and therefore erections. And it's got an inhibitory action on nitric oxide. Okay, estrogen receptor alpha, on the other hand, is facilitative of erections. So it's a little hard to understand, but you just can't cross a threshold, and then you'll be fine. At the same time, lastly, yes, if people are doing 210 a week or 200 a week, but they're injecting daily and they have libido and EQ, it's not the dose. It is the frequency. You're not getting enough testosterone at once. We all have an androgenic threshold that we need to reach in order for satisfactory erectile quality to happen. Listen, dihydrotestosterone, its conversion from test, works at the local level in optimizing the vasculature of your penis. And if you don't have enough of it, but you have a lot of estradiol, your penis won't work. Take finasteride. You can reach the same outcome there. And that's why guys' penises don't work on fucking finasteride. So the ratios have to be in order. Does it mean that you've got to be completely in range with estradiol? No, because I'm not. And some of my clients that are running high doses, they're not in range. They're over range. But they have enough DHT per the injection frequency and the dose to antagonize estrogen's effects. It's almost as if they're taking Masteron, but they're not. The DHT is doing it for them. So have I heard about Dr. Ty Vincent? Huge advocate of high dose TRT, wants his patients at 2K nanograms per deciliter for optimization. Puts boys on T at 16 years old. I can't say I agree with that last thing there. However, I'm sure there's stuff I don't know. And I'm cognizant of what I may not know, so I have no idea what the rationale is there. Maybe there's a reason for that. Regarding 2000, you don't need to be there unless you were seriously hypogonadal or had a fucking prolactinoma, which inhibited DHT for years and you were starved of it. So it's almost like when you are starved of food for 6 months at a time. Your first Big Mac back is not going to fix the problems that happen from your 6-month starvation stint. You will need to eat lots of calories for a while to fix some of those problems. So, in those cases, sure, 2000 makes sense as long as the health markers are in check. Otherwise, I don't see it being the best. Yeah, but I do think, to this guy's credit, that peaking around between 1,500 and 1,800 is very good. In my opinion, though, so long as you trough back down to something a little more what we would consider reasonable, like 1,100 or 1,000 nanograms per deciliter, I wouldn't want to inject 50 milligrams a day consistently and be at 1,700, 1,800 all the time, because then my hematocrit would go over range. My blood pressure wouldn't change. Then my lipids probably would get noticeably skewed. And also would fuck libido and erections, because it just doesn't work that way. I need a trough. Most folks need a good trough after a peak. And that's just kind of how our bodies are accustomed to working. It's how we worked as natties, just on a smaller scale, on a daily scale. Obviously, with 2,000 nanograms per deciliter, there's going to be a significant amount of fucking anabolism. Again, I mean, I have grown, like my pumps are literally gnarly at the fucking gym. And finally, my shoulders are back to being nice and round and I feel good. I'm leaning out while putting on muscle. So the higher levels of TAS will do that. They will. You recomp better. And you're fucking stronger. So there's a lot of benefit to it. But, in the high dose TRT Mastery video course, which, I just launched and is like the most popular fucking product we have. Is that it? Yeah, this is it right here. I'm not suggesting you go to 2,000. Close. but not necessarily 2000. Now, in some of the protocols in there, people will peak at 2000, but you're going to trough back down to something a lot more reasonable so that, again, the ratios stay in check and everything stays in check. All right, well, I'll keep that up there for you folks, and we'll go from there. I'll check this guy out and see, what the hell is going on. New Boy Fit says he actually wants people up to 2,000 eventually by titrating up. He put out a series of videos and studies on heart issues. He's not a fan of high E2. So I imagine he's having people control estradiol as well. That's the other problem with consistently staying at 2,000 is you're going to have to control estrogen for your dick to work most of the time. There are outliers for whatever reasons, probably the DHT being antagonistic to their estradiol, that don't have to manage estrogen. I don't at 250, but I did at 300. And the only reason that I don't have to manage estrogen right now is because I don't dose HCG much at all. It's like once the testicles start to atrophy past the threshold, then I'll dose a little HCG and they're right back for 2 weeks. So, but that allows me this pulsed microdosing of HCG to not have to take an AI on high doses of test right now. How much HCG do I normally run with 70 of test C every 4th day? When I did that, 125 IU of HCG on one of the injections was the best way for me to do it. And then estrogen felt like 37. I could get away with twice a week. The estrogen would be 45 and things would be all right, but erections would probably not be as solid. That's just kind of the thing. HCG is very often a ruiner of protocols, not because HCG is bad, but because it's estrogenic and you're dosing it wrong. That's essentially all. Well, 70 every 4th day is an okay dose. It comes out to about 120, 126 a week. If you can tolerate that and you're happy with the energy and anabolism, do it. But I didn't feel great on that. I feel much better on 150 every 4th day. Yeah, compared to 70. Question about propionate. I'm on high 300 milligrams, down from 500 milligrams. But shots of 30 to 50 of prop feels nootropic and calming. I feel like it can't just be serum level increase since my level's already likely over 2K. Well, are you doing them daily? What is your question? Your question is, what is the nootropic and calming like effect? It's a mixture of everything. DHT is a nootropic, right? Take Proviron and you will feel like a different person. Not only will your physique change positively in terms of getting leaner and more vascular and stuff, but you feel fucking so much more masculine on Proviron because it's just methylated DHT and it hits differently than your DHT itself. Mysterolin does different things, like to the androgen receptors that inherent DHT can't do. So that's why it's like a super fucking unique androgenic compound. But yeah, I mean, plausibly you synthesize more dopamine from test prop due to the speed with which you peak. So, dopamine is a very, I wouldn't call it a calming neurotransmitter, but it's a very regulatory neurotransmitter. It's not just about motivation and reward. It actually regulates your brain function. Try going dopamine deficient somehow by taking lots of serotonergics is how you could do that. And your brain will function less good. How much faster does test E reach steady state than test C? It's about the same. It's just that the differences between them is that test E peaks a little quicker and it leaves your body faster. Yeah. So at day 5, if you inject every 5th day, it's akin to like using Cypionate every 7th day. You're troughing. You're definitely troughing. That's why I did that video on the best frequency for enanthate. Again, not a blanket statement because people can dose every other day. I've made that clear. Nothing is a blanket statement here. So when people get in the comments, by the way, I hope these people see this and go, oh, now Ryan's saying this, but Ryan used to say this. I've always said, if this is you, then this is what you should do. Not that everybody should do this. I don't even think everybody should high dose TRT. You've got to figure out if you can tolerate it. I used to not be able to tolerate high dose TRT until I figured out how, right? That's kind of, partially what went in high dose TRT mastery is figuring out how. If you can make it work, you'll have a different life, man. You'll have a different life. But back to the question, it's still about 5-6 weeks. Unless you front load. If you front load, which I've done content on that, then you'll get there quicker. What do you think would feel better for sexual function? 70 milligrams test E every fourth day or test C every fourth day? Probably test C, because 70 milligrams of test E every fourth day is probably not enough. Yeah, you're probably likely to feel crappy on that. I mean, you're just above low dose TRT. You'd be at 120 something milligrams a week. But, again, this all depends on your estrogen dynamics as well. So, I can't really say, but I would not dose. I would dose 70 of test E every third day, not every fourth day, and see how you fare. If it's too close of a frequency because your body hates close frequencies, which a lot of people do, then, consider gapping it out and increasing the enanthate dose or just going to cypionate. Do you still use cream? Do you prefer injections over cream? No, I moved from cream for the purposes of increasing anabolism. Where I was dialed in sexual function, but I wasn't growing. It's like I didn't really have the protein synthesis capacity to really grow the way I wanted to. I could slowly grow over years, but I was largely just staying the same, and I also troughed, not considerably low, but low enough to where I wasn't as anabolic, right? So that is the sole purpose for me changing to cypionate and then going on higher doses is anabolism. It's summertime, 2 summers ago. It was last summer. Last summer? No, it was the summer before last. I went on a cycle. I do that during the summer. And then in the winter, I'm able to just kind of try to maintain and keep most of the mass that I put on in the summer. My summers are hard gaining, and then the winters are trying to maintain. If I'd gone on a cycle, I make sure that I've got my HDL and LDL in the right place and ApoB to take a break from it. I don't think constant cycling is a good idea. But no, I don't use cream. Do I prefer injections over cream? It depends on what the goal is. For me, the goal is anabolism. But thankfully, I've dialed the protocol in at 250 once a week with very little HCG, where my libido and erections are fucking gnarly. Like, just the erections especially are unbelievable. So I like that better than when I was on cream, because not only do I have libido and erections like I did on cream, I also have anabolism, which I didn't really have on cream. I was kind of like a little bit better than a natty on the test cream protocol that I was on. Whereas now I actually feel like I'm, on gear, like a little bit on gear. My body represents that, and it feels awesome. HDL sucks, though surprisingly high, doesn't affect much. Your HDL, it's always been low. Okay, best way to increase it. You might want to look at tocotrienols. I don't know. I mean, for me, since I implemented more cardio, I mean, I'm doing cardio pretty much every day now, and it's jogging or it is big long walks. My HDL has gone up from 50 something to like high 60s. It's pretty awesome. I would try taking some tocotrienols every day as well. And I would look into some other supplements like D-limonene, predominantly used for reflux, but it'll also optimizes lipids in a health favorable way. I forget the mechanism, but there are plenty of things you can take to try to get lipids in check. At the same time, I don't know. I mean, the new shit about like, saturated fat is great and eat as much of it as you want. I think that's wrong. I think that's obviously fucking wrong. You can't just eat as much as you want. So, you probably want to try to limit foods that can modify your lipids, at least in excess quantity. And throw things in that we know do help lipids positively. Like if Jill and I go to Buffalo Wild Wings, because I am a fan of the Blazing Knockout wings, because they're super fucking hot, and it's an actual hot food experience that I can enjoy, because most hot sauces are not hot. Most hot wings, 99% of hot wings out there in the wild are not actually hot, but those fucking things are hot. So that's kind of eating like shit for a day. And we like going to Buffalo Wild Wings. We go once a week. We just enjoy the whole experience. I am crying my eyes out literally in fucking, in hot pain. But I get a salad those nights, but like the next night, if we happen to go out or if we're at home, I'm eating a giant salad with whatever else I'm eating. I eat 3-4 salads a week. So that's one of the ways I think my lipids are in check. and I'm also reducing oxidative stress and getting a good degree of fucking minerals. So you got to balance your diet too. The diet is important relative to these things, not so much avoiding saturated fat, although you should avoid loads of it. You can have some of it, you need some of it, but you should also try to balance that out with foods that nourish your body and that keep your blood markers in check, like vegetables. Mainly vegetables, man. Hacks for that are, sure, you can get a bunch of fruits and vegetables and get a NutriBullet and make your own smoothies, but just go get some naked juice. Just go get some naked juice, like the blue, blue smoothie kind, the green one, and you're getting a ton of that good shit in your body. Yeah. Those would be my suggestions, man. What do you think of a high dose cream, 400 milligrams each day from 20% plus 100 IU each? So 100 IU HCG on that dose of cream, probably a little too high. Probably going to take you over an estradiol, and you might not have great sexual function. Your mileage may vary. Again, dude, I might do an entire product on low dosing HCG because I have come to learn that we do not need as much as I thought I needed. Again, I just flipped it around. Like on lower doses of test, I do need a lot of HCG, but on high doses of test, I don't, nor can I tolerate it. So, I'm just looking at it from a biased perspective, admittedly, now that you should try to dose HCG as minimally as you can, so you don't fuck up your ratios of estradiol to DHT, you keep good sexual function, and at the same time, most people's side effects on TRT, if HCG is in their protocol and if it's dosed too high for them, are just because of HCG. Not because HCG causes side effects, but because it's profoundly estrogenic. I went down this deep rabbit hole where I was trying to, with various clients as well as myself, replicate the side effects of very high elevated estradiol, trying to prove that it was HCG causing it by removing the HCG and dosing exogenous estradiol. And without fail, the same side effects came about even when HCG was removed. So what does that tell you? It's estrogen. It is just estrogen. Estrogen causes side effects in males. Now, you got to be versed in all this shit to know that over time. You have to see enough people and enough patterns to know that. At the same time, I am with somebody who is on exogenous estradiol. My female partner is on exogenous estradiol, and she gets fucking side effects even as a fucking female when the dose is too high, as we were dialing her in the beginning. Estrogen can cause a lot of fucking side effects, man. So watch your HCG, 400 milligrams, 20% cream. Well, the 20%, so it's what, 50? Yeah, so you'd be doing 8 pumps. That's a little high, bro. I've done shit like that before, but it was hard to dial in the sexual function. So there's been a lot of DHT. You're probably going to nuke your hair as well. There are better protocols than that. Would there be any reason to not keep running your high dose protocol, at least through the rest of your 40s? No, it's not enough to cause LVH. I got to go do another echo sometime in the next few months just to look at my heart. I think that's important, but there's not going to be any problem. The only way it would become unsustainable for me is if I couldn't keep the hematocrit in range and if LDL had gone up to, gone to like 120, 130 or something. But, right now it's 107, I think it was, which is basically top of the range. It's like, it's okay. Yeah, otherwise, I don't know. If I became short of breath due to high hematocrit, then I would lower it. But ultimately, I'm not a huge proponent of living life on the edge. And that's kind of a little bit on the edge generally. I think guys that have run steroids like Chase Irons, right? Grams a year and now had cycled back down, probably due to health problems, and not exclusively his daughter, runs 250 and will run 250 just fucking indefinitely, right? So it's to those guys who have taken higher doses of test, that's like, it's not a dangerous. They don't even think about it. They're just dosing 250. So I think I could probably dose it forever and be just fine. But like pushing 60, 65, 70, your body is more fragile. So it's unclear to me exactly how that's going to work. But yeah, almost definitely after the summer is over, maybe early fall, I'll be just down to 200, a 50 milligram reduction, and I'll still dose every 7 days. I am very, very tired of applying testosterone or dosing testosterone in any close frequency. I am loving the fact that I can inject on a Tuesday and I do not have to look at a vial or think about piercing my muscle for an entire 7 days. I really like that. So I'll stay on it, until the end of the summer, early fall, and I will drop it only for good measure. Like, I feel amazing. Only for good measure to 200. Where are you getting your blood work? What's the cheapest blood work that you know of? Discountedlabs.com is where I get all my blood work, and then it gets sent automatically to Quest Diagnostics. There's 2 local to me that I go to that are within quick driving range. And that's where I get my blood work, and it gets reported within 7 days if it's estradiol ultra sensitive, within 4 or 5 days if it's testosterone LCMS, and within a day or 2 if it's anything routine like CBC, CMP, things like that. Have you had clients where they got their best sexual function with E2 between 15 and 20? Yeah, I have, but those are typically people that were PFS sufferers. Yeah, not all of them have to do that, by the way, but some of them do. Yeah, some of them do. And yeah, generally there are, but the distinction to make is that, yes, they have to be between 15 and 20 on lower doses of test because they don't have enough DHT to support counteracting the estradiol, so it's got to be down there. If they go on higher doses of test, they can tolerate 35, 45, 55, maybe even 60. But the frequency has to be gapped out. It's got to be enough androgens at once, and it's got to be enough DHT to antagonize estradiol. Again, if you're on high doses of test and you do it right, that's why this course is so fucking important for everybody that wants to actually try that. Your DHT acts like masteron, right? Blocks the estrogen at the gene expression side, somewhat at the receptor side, a little bit at the aromatase gene encoding side, and it's counter to estrogen at the tissues. So, on higher doses, these same people do not need to be at 15 and 20. But at moderate or low doses of TRT, yep, I've seen it. John. What's up, John? 200 milligrams test E per week. Blood levels off the charts. Results are decent, but erection quality a problem. Could it be CAG repeat? Probably not. No, probably not. That is a rare thing. The only reason I put that out is for people to think about, maybe I need more tests because I'm a little insensitive to the test that I have, which happens all the time. That happens a lot. People need more tests. They're just insensitive to regular doses of TRT. But it isn't because of CAG repeat probably 90-something% of the time. But some of the time it is because it's a known phenomenon in the scientific literature. If your blood levels are off the charts, but EQ is a problem, this is something else. Yeah. But it still could be the protocol, but it could be the frequency. If you're dosing test E, I don't assume you're dosing every 5 days, right? Which is how you should be doing high doses of test infrequently so that you have a good trough and you get a nice peak and you get the benefits of the high doses of test. Otherwise, you could be on 200 all you want, but if you're pinning every fucking day, you're not getting high doses of test. You're not. You're getting a cumulative 200 milligram a week dose, but you're not getting a bolus. It's very different. The kinetics are very different. So, that's one reason that EQ could be shitty. At the same time, again, I just did a video on the main reasons that erectile dysfunction happens on TRT. So go look at it. We should segue into nicotine real quick on that. Listen, I have proven this now. I have proven it. I suspected it for a long time with clients, smokers, but also vapors, like heavy chain vaping. I've suspected it for a while, but I guess I didn't want to go down that route. People love their vapes and shit and their Zins and whatever. But we're a results-driven company. So if I'm with a client and after 3 months we haven't gotten the erections up to par, which almost never happens, but if it does happen, there's something else going on. There's something else going on. And all of the cases where there was a high nicotine load, we reduced it dramatically And I had to put protocols together for them to do it. Okay, you get a 0 milligram nicotine and you get a 3 milligram and you mix them so that you have a 1.5 and a 3 mil cartridge, and you do not fucking, you do not vape any more than one cartridge a day. Erections come back. Nothing changed in the protocol. Nothing. Like, we had them on the right protocol. Again, my fact-finding process is pretty dialed in after 7.5 years. So I know what protocols to start people on and how to adjust. If we've done all that correctly, the erections should work. But they don't, and we remove nicotine and the erections work. So you guys, you got to be cognizant of it. Those of you that are having issues with erections and you're dosed in a lot of nicotine, remember, it is a potent vasoconstrictor. You cannot think about drugs like nicotine one-dimensionally, like, oh, it helps Alzheimer's. First of all, does it? Secondly, okay, yeah, it's a nicotinic acetylcholine receptor agonist. This is generally good for brain function, but it constricts your blood vessels, man. And that is the opposite of what you want to do if you want your dick to work. You can't be constricting blood vessels, especially continuously. So, get your nicotine in check, and a lot of people are going to fix their erection problems on TRT. Yeah, it's fucking insane. Even I have a difference in erection. I can still get it up all as well, but if I'm dosing loads of nicotine, again, I have a vape, but it's very minimal concentration. But largely, I like nicotine patches from my nootropics days, and I still like those. There'll be a certain thickness that won't be present in girth and erection quality, and I can tell it's vasoconstriction. There's vasoconstriction. But clients, man, these guys vaping their asses off. We've got them on a perfect protocol for their body. Erections still aren't up to par. I have them reduce their vaping substantially, and they've got ragers again. Go fucking Reddit this. Those of you interested in that, go to the quit vaping subreddit and the quit smoking subreddit and watch when people dramatically or permanently or like 100% reduce their nicotine load, their erections come roaring back. Should a person do if they have a CAG repeat issue? Dose sport test. What's a good ratio of DHT to E2? There is none. There isn't one. There's only the one that for your individual body allows you to have quality erections. That's pretty much it. But numbers are like top of the reference range DHT, E2 at like 30. If you're over 150, 200 nanograms per deciliter DHT, your E2 can be 45, 50. But that's generally what you want to look at. You know what I mean? That's essentially it. Am I dosing test E or cypionate? 250 test C. Yeah, it's test 250 too. So it's 250 per milliliter, 250 milligrams per mil. So I just inject a mil into the glute. It's less, at once in terms of oil, which is good. And that's why I got test 250. So I didn't have to like fucking draw the syringe to this between the 7 and the 8 mark and be like, oh, this weird fucking thing. It's just 1 mil. Is daily caffeine as bad for your erection quality as nicotine? No, it is a vasoconstrictor, but if you start compounding vasoconstrictors, that's when it's bad. If you're drinking a lot of coffee throughout the day and you also have a lot of nicotine, yeah, your erections are going to suffer. There is no question. It's physiologically impossible to have the best possible erections with a lot of vasoconstriction. Now, you could try to counter this with a chemical called vinpocetine, which is a brain vasodilator. And other vasodilators, but why not just reduce the nicotine load? Now I don't drink coffee all day, but a cup in the morning, regular strength, and then a latte with a shot of espresso in it at between 2 and 3 p.m. And these days, very little nicotine. I've been trying to purchase a few digital courses for a few days, but it's not working. After entering CC and hitting purchase, it just spins forever and says, don't close this page. That must be because you are purchasing from a different country that we may not have as an option. At the same time, you might be, I don't know, maybe our system sees you as spam or something. What country do you live in? And I'll add it to the list. Like, there are countries that I actually haven't added to the list because we never get sales from there. But the thing too is I don't see any failed orders recently, so I'm not sure. I don't see any failed orders from anyone named Michael. I've got a failed order from a guy named Carter. Carter, if you're watching, go try your order again. But no, I mean, listen, in the last 24 hours, there's been 9 orders, and they all went through fine. So it might be the country that you're in. What country are you in? Try to follow up on that so I can see if I can add the country. But send me an email, ryan@livecortex.com if you're in the States, and try to record the process with a video recorder like QuickTime on Mac or Media Player, wherever, so I can try to diagnose what's happening. But as far as I can tell, the website's doing great. Is my cat still on test? No, my cat's never been on test, but it's something that I certainly considered. I will consider when he is old and frail. You know, I don't think it's a good idea to take cat's essence, but they spray and they do a lot of fucked up shit when they're young, when they have their testosterone. So I had to get my cat fixed, mainly because he was around another 2 female cats, my ex-girlfriend's cats. I wish I didn't do it, to be honest, but he did spray everywhere, and that sucks. It smells like cat piss in your house, and there's nothing good about that. So it's a fucking bit of a catch-22. But I'll put him on test at some point. Yeah, because listen, this is super sad, but Jill's cat was 17 up until last week, 17 years old, and he had lost all his weight, and he looked like a frail old man, and probably had some hyperthyroidism, and he had a tumor in his liver. And he was extremely bad looking and could not really even walk with any degree of stability. We just had to euthanize him last weekend, and it was fucking sad. You know, I had to fucking bury him, you know, on the side of their yard and watch her daughter bawl her eyes out. And it was just, you know, it sucks. But in that case, like if it was my cat, first of all, I would have removed the tumor. I get that they didn't do that. But I would have him on test the moment he starts getting frail and weak, because cat TRT is a real thing. And I know it improves his quality of life. As of now, though, he's 8 years old. He's a killer. He's outside killing things all the time. And, you know, he's doing really well. New Boy Fit says, couldn't agree more. I was running 5x 50 milligram pins of SIP, and my levels were high. Energy was high. Recovery was great. Libido and erections were ass. Exactly. I simply cannot run high dose more than 2 to 3 pins. That's where I'm at. Like, you know, if I can do 175 with every other day injections, and I'm fine. Am I great? Like stellar erections? No. Stellar libido? It's pretty good. Not stellar. But, you know, on higher doses, most people just do better injecting less frequently. Like on 250, everything's out of control. I mean, dude, like the wind blows and I got a fucking erection that doesn't go down, and I've got to do the old talk at the gym and shit. Coviello data proved 125 IU every other day is the boundary that keeps your... Yeah, I've read that. Drop down. No, this is not true. Your Leydig cells don't become too faint. What those studies actually showed us is that 62.5 IU of HCG a day keeps a great degree of your testicular function. That's what it shows us. We don't need 100% ITT on TRT. You don't need that. You don't need it. Especially, you have to look at what your goals are. If your goal is fertility, you should be dosing a lot of HCG. If your goal is to remain semi-fertile and be able to be fertile if you need to, which you could achieve by just dosing more HCG at that time, but mainly to have the right ratios of DHT to estradiol, and therefore have a, you know, highly functional penis and great libido, you've got to intelligently dose HCG. So that's just it. Remember, I do this for a living all the time, every day of my life, with the exception of weekends, and still I work with clients on weekends too. Not just myself. So you've got yourself and you've got your analysis of the study. I have been doing this every day, and increasingly over the last 4 years, but a total of 7.5 years of coaching people on TRT. As a middle ground between once a week bolus and twice a week injections with higher dosages, what could you expect from injecting a larger amount early in the week and a smaller top up dose in the middle of the week? You're convoluting it, man. Injecting a larger amount earlier in the week and then a smaller top up dose is essentially, by doing that, you're achieving the same thing as frequent injections, meaning you'll have less trough. I don't think it's a great idea. Any specific dosage or injection frequency of test E for fixing PSSD? No, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Nope, it doesn't work that way. Because that, again, this is actually I'm glad you asked this, because this is actually the problem with the people in the forums, where after 10 years they still have PSSD. And a lot of them will never get better because they think that you can approach fixing it with a specific dosage of test. No one's experience is going to mirror yours, first of all. There are generalities. You probably need high doses of test. But, you can't look at it like it's kind of the same thing as when they say, what dose of lithium orotate, can fix or gives you symptom resolution for a temporary period. And then another person tries that same dose of lithium orotate and they don't get it. They're like, what the fuck? Lithium sucks, doesn't work. Well, that dose pharmacokinetically operated very different in that other person versus you. So there is no dose. There is no magic one thing, like, one dose, one ester for PSSD. You have to try things. But generally, the best way to look at it is get out of the frame of you're looking at post-SRI sexual dysfunction, because then you're going to think it's like fucking 5-HT1A receptors and all this other nonsense, and look at it from the frame of I have sexual dysfunction. How does sexual function work in males? Produce that. Produce the physiology of working sexual function in males. And in this case, you would do it by replacing hormones and getting the right dose and frequency. Now, all the TRT stuff applies there, which is that if you do daily injections and you have no libido and erections, even though you're on a high dose and your test is at 1,000 or 1,200 and estradiol's at 35 and you have nothing, it means you need more testosterone at once. You kind of got to forget about the bloods and peak to 1,500 and trough to 900. And then you have it. Again, I also have people, this is a PFS person, on 200 a week. They're doing every 3.5 day injections, so it's kind of frequent. But they're taking every other day an estradiol, and that dials them in. High doses, but with controlled estrogen, like very tightly controlled estrogen. That's not everybody, but it goes to show that there is no specific dose. I pin TRT twice a week with 25 units of HCG, 500 IU a week total. Is this good for HCG, or would 1x a week be better with less? I don't know what your dose of TRT is, bro. What's my opinion on running HCG on the higher doses? See, that's what I described before. You can do it if you'd like, and if your goal is maintaining fertility, run as much HCG as you want, but it's estrogenic, right? So it is definitely, not theoretically, but definitely going to throw off the estrogen DHT balance. If you're too estrogen dominant, even in the presence of high DHT, but you cross the threshold of estrogen, you're just going to have sexual function mismatches. That thing where you've got to focus too much during sex. Even if you can get an erection, you have to focus to climax, or your libido is good, but your dick doesn't work and you need Cialis to have sex. Those are the kind of things that happen there, man. Running HCG at high doses of tests, running high dose HCG is rarely good. Rarely good. Yeah. If you want to do it, do it. But if things suck, you need an AI. Because now your ratios are jacked and the estrogen's a little too high for your DHT. New Boy Fitz, let me clarify. I'm on high dose test E, layering in 50 milligrams of prop at times, and it's massively increased my focus and calmness and drive on pin days. Worth noting, I've diagnosed ADHD, right? Yeah, that's probably why. So, I mean, it does lend more to the idea that the bolus of prop is synthesizing more dopamine. The way you make dopamine is from L-tyrosine, the amino acid, but there's two conversion steps. One of them is tyrosine hydroxylase. It's an enzyme that converts tyrosine to dopa. And then there's another enzyme called dopa decarboxylase, which converts that L-dopa into dopamine. And so what you're doing with test prop is you're optimizing the first step of that by increasing tyrosine hydroxylase expression. So that would be the reason this happens. It's the most plausible reason that happens, man. Yeah, that's just the most plausible reason. Prop is, I think it's profoundly dopaminergic, man. I even think there's a study on that showing an increase in dopaminergic signaling or something from test prop. Do I think pinning every other, thanks for the super chat though, brother. Do I think pinning daily or every other day can make ApoB and other markers rise due to constant androgen flooding? Potentially. Yeah. The thing about the whole daily pinning equals like a less of everything is backwards. It doesn't work like that. Go on the forums. I mean, I see it on client work, but if you don't have clients, you're going to have to look at the forums and you'll notice that people do daily injections, their estrogen ends up higher. Why is that? Because they don't trough. It's very simple. I'm not an exceptionally smart person. I'm just good at recognizing patterns. I mean, I am pretty smart, but like it's easy. Like listen, if you have constant aromatization, what do you think happens at the tissues? It builds up. Like if a faucet is just constantly running and you've got a cup on the other end of it, how fast do you think that cup's going to fill if it's constantly running? Whereas if you shut the water off for a little bit and over time the water can evaporate, how fast do you think the cup's going to fill? Evaporate meaning you, through a process in your liver and otherwise, clear estradiol from your system. You do that all the time. We're clearing estrogen all the time. Yeah, via glucuronidation. So if you have a break from aromatization, your body can clear more estradiol. And then you pin again at your once a week or every fifth day, you bring more estradiol in, but then you have a break, you're clearing more estradiol from your system. If you're doing it every day, the clearance of estradiol probably still maintained, but you have no break. So that cup from that water faucet analogy fills a lot faster. And we see it on bloods. So that's why. That's why. I don't know about ApoB though. That's a hard one. It's kind of just different physiology. Bob Notcher. I'm on 25 milligrams of test prop daily. Been taking 400 IU of HCG 3x weekly. Okay. That's a little high for that prop dose. I think your estrogen probably be a little wacky, but started 2 weeks ago and we'll run Bloodwork week 5. Should I cut the HD at 55 and was 550 to 600 before starting? Okay, that's not bad for 55. If erections and libido are fine right now, I would do nothing and do your blood work at week 5. Do your experiment where you actually get to see where things are at week 5 and go from there. If erections and libido are crappy now, you're almost steady state with prop by 2 weeks. You are steady state with prop, actually. And then I would reduce the HCG. With that, first of all, prop, you need less HCG because it sticks around less. Secondly, HCG 3 times a week at 400 IU is 1200 IU a week. That is too much HCG. Yeah, that's, in my opinion, generally too much HCG. Now, it might be fine for you. I don't know what your goals are. You're probably not wanting to preserve fertility at 55. So if I were you, brother, I would, if libido erections are fine, keep it there. You're getting a lot of neurosteroids from the HCG and you're keeping the testes very functional. I don't see it being a problem if there are no problems. But if libido and erections or otherwise side effects, which you can attribute to estradiol, are problematic, you reduce that estrogen or the HCG dose by a lot. Yeah, like 100 IU once or twice a week. With test E releasing faster than test C, would you say you feel more dopamine like with prop? Not quite. Prop is a totally different animal. It's not the same. Maybe a little bit. When you pair HCG with the same day you pin your test, would you say that helps your body get better androgen peaks? Potentially, but not a lot. I mean, the androgen peaks compared to the injection amount are not that significant. They're coming largely from the injection. John, when running 210 milligrams a week, every other day 30 milligrams? Of 20% cream for AR upregulation? It's not helping your androgen receptors upregulate, brother. DHT would do that, but not the little bit of DHT you're getting from that 30 milligram dose. E2 sensitive 40 still have major EQ, libido, and sensitivity issues. What is your frequency on test E? That would be the answer. At the same time, you do not need to run cream with that dose of test E. It's enough androgens. You probably just need to situate your protocol to make more sense. Forget about the numbers for now. What's the frequency of that test E? If it's too close together, that's 100% your problem. It's 100% your problem. Constant androgens, SHBG gets squashed. You transport less to the tissues. Estrogen's out of balance with DHT, and you get sexual dysfunction. That is 100% the problem. Unless you're dosing once a week or once every 5 days, that 210, then probably your cream might be creating a little more DHT than you should have. And sensitivity is going to suck when DHT is countering estrogen too much. So it could be either one of those things, brother. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. I'll buy a ginger ale with that. Thanks, bucko. I wanted 200 milligrams a week. Why would it be better to do 150 every 5 days as opposed to 200? It's not necessarily. In fact, I feel better on every 7 days than every 5th day with sexual function. Yeah, every 5th day is fine. And Jill and I have sex pretty much every fucking day. And libido is high, but the rigidity of erections is just better on every 7 days for me personally. I like the idea of slightly longer trough. And again, test cypionates, it's just made for every 7 days. It's literally made for that. The simplest thing about when people do daily injections on test C, and no matter what their dose is and what the bloods say, they have problems and they're not dialed in terms of sexual function, is they're using an ester that's meant to be injected every 7 days. That's just it. You don't need to, this is the thing, you do not need to inject any more to get a steady concentration of the stuff in your serum when it's already made to keep a steady concentration in your serum, injecting it less frequently. You already have that. And it's actually better to not have a consistently steady amount at the same levels in the serum with test cypionate. It's better to not have that. The argument I've heard people make is, okay, if you inject daily, this is just quantifiably better because in terms of pharmacokinetic, biology, if you will, you are getting the steadiest amount of the concentration of the drug in the system and never any lower. Okay, that makes sense with tadalafil, not with testosterone. Tadalafil is not testosterone. All tadalafil is doing is inhibiting phosphodiesterase 5, right? Fostering nitric oxide signaling in your penis and optimizing your brain and a bunch of other cool shit it does. So you'd want a steady supply of that if you need the better erection quality. But there are so many other factors regarding test, like saturation of estrogen at the tissues, DHT estrogen ratio, that a simple keep it steady state because you have the same amount of the drug and that's the most effective way doesn't apply. It assumes the rest of this shit doesn't matter. And we all know that DHT matters. Its ratio with estrogen matters. As well as we all know, and if we don't, I'm going to make sure I hammer it home, that what also matters to people is an androgenic threshold. The amount of testosterone that their body is able to have or uptake at once. People need a threshold in order for the intrapenile hemodynamics, otherwise dynamics, to work, to be optimized. So that's a long-winded way of saying generally infrequent injections are better. They really are better. Now, 150 every 5th day, I think that's 266 a week, right? Is it something like that? No, it's 210 a week. It's 210 a week, isn't it? Yeah, it's 210. 150 every 4th day is 266 a week. That can work. That worked for me. 150 every 5th day works for me. 150 every 4th day works for me. 250 a week works for me, but 250 a week works way better than either of those. Although those other ones still have erections, still have libido, still have anabolism. It's just not as good as 250 once a week. There's levels to this. There's levels to this shit, man. Hey, yo, D. Hey, yo, man. Levels to this shit, bruh. You normally find that 70 milligrams test C every 4th day gives you enough of a peak and isn't too steady state for most people. No, it's just typically good for sexual function. It all depends on the person. For me, it's not enough test. I felt a big trough, and I didn't like it, but my dick worked great and my libido was amazing. Yes, discounted labs is effective. Decided to give DHT enanthate a whirl, says New Boy Fits. Haven't gotten it yet. Okay. But I'll let you know if it did anything interesting. Yeah, just be careful. It's a very, very powerful compound, and it could be amazing, like literally amazing. If you get the right dose of DHT, like exogenously on top of TRT, you can control the estrogen, and the erections are going to be fucking amazing. But if you dose it too high, you block estrogen too much, and your libido goes south. And you're going to have hair loss and stuff too. So just respect it like you would tequila, and you'll be good. You'll be good, brother. My opinion, thanks for the super chat. Brother, aldrafenil versus FL adrafenil. So regular adrafenil versus FL, the bisfluoridated version of adrafenil, I want to say. Also, have you used salicylic acid for hair loss? No. Also, I agree with you about limiting acid reflux helps your liver and reduces estrogen. Yes. My opinion on the fluoridated version of adrafenil is it's probably just a little more bioavailable, but not necessary to take, you know. It depends on how you respond to nootropics. Adrafenil, if I just take 300, 400, 500 milligrams of that shit, I notice it in 25 minutes and I'm like on speed and it works. Now, modafinil is better and cleaner, you know, because adrafenil has to basically convert to modafinil through a hepatic process. So modafinil is more efficient. But, you know, as you start getting into these more bioavailable analogs of the afenils, yeah, they hit quicker and they're a little more efficient, but they're not necessary. Just, you know, we tried and true modafinil is honestly the best afenil to take, in my opinion. Easy way to get your clients off the vape is to have a 0 milligram juice that they actually like the taste of and a 3 milligram juice that they like the taste of, to put them together in a 3 milliliter cartridge and have them consume no more than either 3/4 or the entire 3 mil cartridge. So it works out to be 1.5 milligrams per milliliter. So that's 4.5 milligrams all told per day or something like that they're allowed to consume. Any more than that, the erections suffer. So if they're down there, they really don't get enough vasoconstriction to have ED or otherwise like less quality erections. You can have good erections, but I'm telling you, if you're used to chronically dosing nicotine and you reduce that load noticeably, your fucking boners will be better. It's a blood vessel constrictor. That's what nicotine does. So your question was, that's the easiest way. It's to find a happy medium where if they want to be kind of vaping a good degree of the day, just make sure it's not as much nicotine by getting a no nicotine juice and mixing it with a low nicotine juice, you know? Yeah, you find it's not that much of a difference. You find you ultimately probably feel a lot better, you know, than dosing loads of fucking nicotine. You know what I mean? Like I have a vape, but I don't really use it a lot. I definitely use it every day, but just not a fucking lot. But there was a point at which on vacation I ended up getting too high of a nicotine juice, so I couldn't find anything else, and I just felt fucked up. I just felt fucked up. Nicotine is no joke, man. You know, it's a powerful, potent drug, dude. And it will absolutely fucking inhibit your erections if there's too much. So that's the easiest way right there to do it. And then work your way down. Work your way down to 0 milligram nicotine in a juice that you like, and you'll be fine. It's just about tapering. You know, once you're tapered down on the nicotine load, your body doesn't need it like it used to. Was doing daily for years, consistently fatigued. Just began test D, 150 every 5th day. So far, the energy, masculine, feel energetic, feel been much better. Not quite dialed in sexually. Well, if you just started, you're going to need 4 or 5 weeks to get to steady state and all that and see where you're at. But yeah, you are absolutely getting more testosterone. Every single thing that test does, you're getting a more pronounced effect from it. So why not erections and libido, right? You will. You will. But like, listen, everything takes time, especially on long esters, to dial in. Like, I'm on week 6, I think, of 250 every 7th day. And the first 2 weeks, erections were doable for sex, but they weren't great. It was a transition period. Now they're fucking phenomenal. So you got to wait and see what's happening. If it doesn't change, then you look at all the reasons why you might have ED or erectile difficulties on TRT. Estrogen out of balance with DHT is the predominant one. So if you still have a libido, but erections are suffering, that's too high estrogen for your DHT. If you have no libido and erections are suffering, it's actually too low estrogen for your DHT. So you got to factor that into it. Works both ways. You know, estrogen itself isn't inherently terrible, but it couldn't be. No hormone in isolation is. It's in their relation with other hormones where it matters. Ultra Lord, what a name! Just started 100 milligrams prop every 3 days. I love that protocol. You are a genius, bro. Well, I hope it is fruitful for you and how it's intended to be fruitful, which is boosting libido. Hey, Ryan, I do 60 milligrams prop every day, and it was great for a week. Now it's starting not to work as well. Have PFS, was going to take bloods at 2 weeks. Yeah, that's just what happened. So you got out of ratio somehow. First of all, I wouldn't do anything because this kind of transient shit can happen. And a week is not enough time for any ester to give you any useful data. It's just not. And this is a mistake people make by changing shit, like by being too reactive to their TRT protocols. My clients try to do that a lot. And I've got to be like, don't do anything. Don't do anything. They're like, it's week 3 and what week 2 is amazing and week 3 was bad and then week 4 was good and then week 5 is bad. Don't do anything. Wait. Let it balance out, first of all, on this. Secondly, you got to figure out, do you need more prop at once with a gap in between? 100 every third might be the next option for you. At the same time, you might need to manage estradiol. You know, if you have PFS, it means you converted far too much to estradiol versus DHT for a long time, and you still probably do that. So you need to look at that, man. You know, if all else fails after some of those early suggestions that I gave you, try taking a microdose of anastrozole and see if things, work. At the same time, prop may not be the ester for you. You might need larger doses dosed infrequently of test N and theta or test C. So those are your routes that I would try next, bro. Getting it in. What are you getting in, brother? And it made it pink. That's fucking epic. Thanks for the super chat, bro. I really appreciate that, man. Ryan, having issues with penis being too sensitive and dealing with severe premature ejaculation? Wow. Okay, so you're on the other end of the spectrum of a lot of guys that come to me. Taking 100 milligrams stipulated every 5th day. Great protocol. Libido is good. Erection quality good. Penis is way too sensitive. How can I calm things down? The only way that you could do this is by, number one, taking serotonergic supplements. So some 5-HTP will help this because it's going to blunt the dopaminergic response, which is going to reduce sensation. At the same time, you could try reducing estradiol a very little bit with like a low dose of an aromatase inhibitor. And if you do that, considering things are fine now, you probably reduce your sensation. Yeah. Those of us that have been doing this long enough know that if you take too much estrogen reduction compounds, you lose your sensation. You can lose it completely. So that'd be one other way to do it. The third way to do it is you can marginally increase prolactin, but I'd be really careful about that because then, if it goes over range, you won't have erections and it'll be so far on the other side of the spectrum, sex won't even work for you. So this is a hard one, dude. I mean, it's a problem a lot of us would love to have, or a lot of people want to have. But you're right. I mean, too much and it's too much. There's been times, fucking especially now, but I suppose it all depends on what's going on in the day. But just different protocols that I've run where climax was like, I've had to stop myself from climax and oh shit, it's only been 4.5 fucking minutes. You know what I mean? Or less. So I know that that's not great. Your options are probably change the protocol a little bit. That's another option there. It's like, where are your bloods? I would wager that you got a lot of DHT, a lot of tests throughout that effect duration window, and I think the estrogen's probably kind of up there because up there to a certain point it increases sensation, and then it starts reducing it as you get higher and higher and higher. So you're probably right at that mark with estrogen where it's making sensation a little too much. You just reduce the estrogen a little bit, and that probably will actually help. Yeah. Yeah. At the same time, I would measure thyroid hormones if you're hyper or close to hyper. That in the literature is like the documented correlative to premature ejaculation is too high thyroid hormones. Those are the routes that I would explore, brother. You know, I don't know how long you've been on this protocol, but at the same time, you might, want to just like it might balance out over time. But look at your thyroid hormones. Try taking some serotonergic compounds. You could try increasing prolactin with kratom. It will do it, which, you're running a fucking risk there of having sexual dysfunction eventually. Or again, try to lower the estradiol specifically with an AI, and I bet that the sensitivity will drop. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Really appreciate that, man. You didn't have to do that. Christopher, I'm on cream now because even on 100 milligrams testipinate once a week, I feel way too overstimulated. I would love to make injections work. Any suggestions? Yeah, you got to get to the bottom of why your body responds in an excessive manner to, in terms of anxiety, neurochemistry, to testosterone cypionate. Yeah. Like the bottom line is, there is always something underlying when test causes a particularly negative response. It's not test being the cause. It's test being the exacerbator of something that exists already. So you've got to figure that out. You've got to figure out why. Is it the estrogen that's making you feel fucked up? Are you taking HCG, which is making you make more estrogen, which can absolutely make you feel fucked up? Because estrogen has a highly stimulatory effect too. It can totally do this, At the same time, how long were you dosing 100 milligrams cypionate once a week? Like, were you dialed in libido and erections? Because you probably should have, if so, waited that out, and then you would have been fine. Remember, I'll say this over and over again because I think it just gives people insight into how we're all kind of similar in this way. I ran a cycle a few summers back of 500 milligrams a week, no overstimulation at all. I'm running 250 a week right now, one injection at 250 at once, no overstimulation at all. I fall asleep I'm like knocked out by like 10:30, man, every night. And I sleep like 6:30, 7 o'clock. But when I started TRT, it was like 175 a week and I couldn't sleep. So you just get used to it over time, brother. Yeah. And figure out what in your physiology is fucking making you respond to tests this way. Yeah, it's almost always something like that. New Boy says, super chatting me has saved thousands of dollars. Hope so, dude. Going back and forth with the doctor. Yeah. I don't want to disparage the clinics, but listen, sometimes the fact is you get to a point in your prowess of dialing in your own TRT and understanding sex hormones, where the clinic, especially if you then have sources for your own testosterone, where the clinic is actually just a waste of money, right? Now, we understand why, because these are medically regulated companies. They have to have you get a physical every fucking 6 months, have you, get bloods every however long, and do a fucking paid consult with you. You don't actually need that. That's part of the revenue model. We get it. But do you want to do that? That's why I created Sourceless, honestly. It's just because sometimes you want freedom and autonomy. Now that I don't use cream right now, I don't have a clinic. Yeah, I just get my test 250 from the UGLs. Very fucking high quality from Sourceless. And these guys have been emailing me lately like, what, you're due for blood work. Like, I don't care. I just don't care. I'm doing my own fucking blood work. So it does. It just comes with a cost sometimes. An actual monetary cost, a time cost, a mental energy cost. And I'm glad that this is the outcome for you, bro. I really am. Michael, sorry for screaming in the mic. Could twice a week work for test SIP? It can. Yeah, it can. 3.5 days can work. Generally better for just about everyone on SIPing, regardless of low SHBG. This implies that having low SHBG means you should inject daily. Myth. It's another myth. I want to scream about this, but I'm just trying to be calm. I'm fighting really hard to be calm right now. It's bullshit, bro. It's bullshit. Low SHBG, people say means you should inject daily. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. You inject daily, you're going to overload the system with androgens 24 hours a day, and your SHBG is never going to go up. That's in fact what SHBG is doing when you constantly inject. It's going, oh, we have too much. We have androgens all the time. So we need to lower ourselves so we can transport less to tissues. You inject once a week. First of all, you get more of a peak in estradiol, which raises SHBG. Then it troughs, so you have continued sexual function, stay in the right ratios. But at the same time, because you trough, your SHBG is able to rise and stay in a healthy place. If you have low SHBG, inject once a week and let it go up. Let your body peak and trough as it was designed to do. And use the drug as it was intended. Again, some people can dose every day, and it's fine. More often than not, it's not fine. And you've got to go back to dose the drug how it was made to be dosed. I think everyone can agree, even the everyday proponents, testosterone cypionate was not only not made for daily use, it was explicitly made not for daily use. You know, you think fucking ex-YouTuber or Joe on Reddit is smarter than the scientists that created that ester? They're not. Hope that makes sense, brother. Is there a protocol you have for good anabolism on Prop? Yeah, that's a little bit of the issue on test Prop, is that you've got to be dosing it. I mean, at least 60 every other day. You know, again, 80 every third day, 100 every third day. Those are the anabolic doses of Prop. I can dial in on 25 a day, but I'm not really anabolic. My dick works great. My libido is good, but the anabolism's pretty abysmal. But 100 every third day, noticeably anabolic, bro. Yeah, noticeably anabolic. All right, brothers, I'm going to end the stream. Again, remember, the coupon codes down in the description save you 20% on High Dose TRT Mastery. That's the video course that was just on the top right of the screen, but which is now right here. All right, this let me get the browser out of here. I can't find it. Wonderful. Well, it's just, why can't I ever find that? I guess there's too much stuff in my freaking OBS. Yeah, this is our most popular product, and there's a reason for it. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just tired of playing with small TRT. You know, like they followed all the advice on the fucking web. They're doing daily injections. You know, they're kind of anabolic. They feel okay energy wise. They don't really have any side effects, but their dick doesn't work. Nothing works. High dose TRT the right way. Not only will you finally get insane anabolism and I feel like you're kind of on gear and be able to really put on muscle and get the therapeutic benefits of testosterone. I mean, listen, there are TRT doctors that will not dose their patients under 200 milligrams a week because they recognize that there is a therapeutic threshold of androgens that people need on testosterone replacement therapy. This is therapy, man. You know, it's therapy. And sometimes you've just got to figure out how to dose more test and more test at one time. So there's a framework to do it so that you don't have side effects. You don't lose your fucking hair. And you have stellar libido and great erections that are better than when you're on your lower doses of TRT. There's a way to do this. There are doses and there are frequencies that just work. They're all in this course, boys. It's 20% off. The code is down in the description of this video. Go look at everything that it offers and go get it. Because when you hit checkout, you can watch it immediately. And today, you can start. Or tomorrow. And then you have a whole list of things to try. You don't even have to book me for coaching and pay for coaching. You can just try these things. However, if you don't want to go at it alone, this is all I do. You know, I mean, from 9 in the morning to 5 p.m., aside from doing content, I'm working with coaching clients on TRT. I've been doing consulting and all this stuff for a very long time, 15 years, but with TRT, 7.5 years, and more increasingly over the last 4 years. So please go read the reviews. These are all of my clients, not all of them, but some of them. I mean, these guys are actually out there. They're like in my Telegram. I mean, I asked permission. Thanks, Ryan. I'm kind of happy that I'm on your website. This is just what we do for people. My libido is higher at 43 than it was at 25. You know, do you see the clinics or other coaches achieving this? Erection, sensation, climax came back hard. Doctors failed me. This is a huge one, man. Chris. Dude, Chris is still doing great. Finally met someone who knows what they're doing. Importantly, boys, the audit, the second most popular one, it's a low effort way to get in. Cheaper than the coaching, obviously, but you still get 25 minutes with me over the phone. I'll listen to your entire situation, fact find through my process, and give you suggestions on what to do. You can book the audit in about a minute at livecortex.com. I'll reach out to you right away. The most popular thing that on our roster has been the sexual function enhancement consult. Sometimes we do need coaching, right? But some men do not want coaching. They'd rather go through the whole deep dive and have me generate protocols for them, and then adjustments to those protocols, right? These are people that want to go at it alone and are savvy enough to do so. Fine, totally fine. Go book at livecortex.com. I'll reach out to you right away, and then we start. We're on the call. You get a private command center composed of a protocol that is targeted for you and adjustments from there. However, there's also a sports TRT consult for people really wanting to up the ante, 250, 300 or above. I can show you how to dose that. We can craft protocols. And then there's coaching, right? 3 months, 6 months. These are 50% off. The code is in the description. It's 50 now. So that $4,900 is actually $2,499. Yeah, that's $2,500, and you're with me for 3 straight months. Same thing with 6 months. We will maybe book 4 or 5 of these a year, but Cortex Labs Performance Optimization Black is now here. I know a lot of you guys are not going to do that, but for those of you, this is for serious fucking men who want to 20x their productivity through every biohacking compound available, not just tests, but we'll work on tests and the hormones, peptides, nootropics, SARMs if we need to. You have the entire book, 6 straight months. This is for high performance men, obviously. Get out stuff in the description of this video. Boys, this week, look out, because the content is coming. The shorts are coming. I can't wait. There's a lot of topics that I need to discuss this week that I'm going to be excited to fucking bring to you guys. So look forward to that. Like the video. Makes a huge difference if you're still here. Just hit the like button. It honestly gives YouTube good signals. Their algorithm has changed significantly. So we need to do a lot of optimization of kind of, the sub count revolving. So I need you guys to do as much as you can in liking and, share it if you'd like. I don't need you to, but it'd be awesome. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope you're enjoying your summer, and trying to get a good summer. Yesterday, Jill and I went out and did that all day. Big, long walk. Then we went to a lake. Then we went to the city. We ate at a rooftop bar. Just trying to enjoy the weather while we have it, because if you live anywhere where there's winter, it's going to fucking suck in like 5 months, 4 months from now. It's going to suck. So enjoy while you can. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Peace.